Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Enkrypt AI podcast. I'm Lavanya, and I'm a product marketing intern here. Today, we'll be diving into a conversation around responsible AI, especially how it intersects with security, compliance, and then enterprise adoption. So, here with us today is Sahil Agarwal, our CEO and co-founder. And I'm also thrilled to introduce our guest, Jagadeesh Kunda, and he's led product strategy at Microsoft, AWS, and Salesforce, and is now currently the co-founder at Oleria Security. Jagadeesh, thank you for being here today.
Great to be here.
Awesome. And with that, I'll have Sahil take it over with our first question.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Jagdish, for being here. Really looking forward to the conversation. Before we start, I would love to understand what led you to here. You've built products at Microsoft and AWS. You've led product strategy at Salesforce, JumpCloud, and now you're at Oleria. Looking back, what lessons like that you would want to share that have shaped your approach to where you are today?
Yeah, so great to meet you both. It's a very important topic about how AI is evolving and what does it mean for security. It's a conversation to be had. There's a lot of change here, so I'm great to be part of this conversation. See, what I have learned over the years is my career is broken between building operating system components to building, now we call SaaS. Back in the day, I worked in Exchange Online, maybe one of the largest SaaS you can imagine, with the absence of large-scale databases and Kubernetes, right? Yeah, Exchange is running on Windows
Yeah.
and large-scale first-party infrastructure, right? So there are a lot of learnings about how you adapt to the business needs for that era, and what is the balance between the technology innovation and what customers are actually looking for. For example, during my Windows times, one of the learnings I had was when we decided that the Windows OS is widely distributed with various versions, which is making it difficult for developers to write application. The answer was not to create yet another platform, rather figure out a way to move all the users to Windows 10, right?
Right.
So that was you could approach that problem differently, but the business decision made was to make it extremely easy for people to move to Windows 10, right? Similarly, in Exchange, the learning was very clear. Google made a lot of progress in Google Workspace. At that time, it also made a lot of progress in small and mid-sized enterprises. But the strength that Microsoft had have always been the security, compliance, and
Right.
privacy,
Right.
right?
Especially the enterprise focus side of it.
Exactly. Whether it is DRM, the size of the customer and the scale of the servers, the amount of communication you can do and protect your data, so on and so forth, right? But the same capabilities that is enterprise scale and security first, the customers need in a different way. For example,
Mm.
one of the most popular one is now we call it data residency. Back in the day, we guaranteed that email boxes stayed in the country where the customers reside, right?
Right.
So it started with Germany as one of the primary places Microsoft have done it and expanded to all of Europe. But if you look at it, it's win-win in three different ways. One, you have to now deliver small data centers, which means you don't take a lot of time to deliver them. You are able to deliver data centers and infrastructure and guarantee better security and privacy. And number three is you're able to even do some custom work depending upon each country's needs and requirements in the
Right.
process, right? So again, you could have approached this in various layers, infra, platform, data, but this approach is a learning on how it would benefit both the P&L perspective and the margins perspective too, right? So
Mm.
similarly in AWS, we started building Elasticache, an in-memory database, which is very well known technology developers use today. Back in 2015-16, there was even a question about why you need a database that would respond in microseconds, or what does it even mean having a database in memory? What are the guarantees of data being available all the time? That's a different problem altogether. So we are trying to build a technology and now try to find an audience for it. I still remember working with Ring.com. Back in the day, it was not part of Amazon, but much later it became part of Amazon. The story is very simple. Ring is trying to compete in a space where the customer experience should be as proportionate to an electric signal for a doorbell.
Mm.
If you
Right.
go and press a doorbell, the speed of the bell sound is the electric signal. So
Right.
now you need a database that can respond at the same speed and provide the same experience, right? So that's an unblocking situation for us. And from there on, we could be able to work with a lot of other customers in delivering Elasticache. Similar to that is Memcached. A lot of people don't know that technology, but the intention is very simple. You should be able to create large scale feed like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. What you see is feeds. The
Right.
primary database behind that is Memcached. And how do customers get a managed Memcached and cannot have invested so many large engineering teams to build it is the fundamental idea behind Elasticache. So the two databases it provided was Memcached and Elasticache, right?
But you
So
went from like putting boxes either at customer sites or in country to being completely cloud native with
yeah,
AWS. Like,
yeah,
what was that journey like? And like, when you look back and look at connecting that to security and
yeah,
compliance, especially like both Microsoft and AWS, and then even today in this space of human identities as well as non-human identities,
yeah,
and like everything in between, right? Like the trust, infrastructure, everything. Like,
yeah.
how does that scale figure in?
Yeah. So my transition between Microsoft and Amazon happened because of the actual program I built called Office Graph. Most of the identity and security aspects are inbuilt in it, but it's mostly the trusted platform portion that allowed me or took me into the transition, right? See, back in the day, we used to say Exchange has all the data that is critical to an enterprise. It has
Right.
calendar, tasks, attachments, email, everything. But the brains to make it really smart is in Bing. It has all the technology which can process this data and make it meaningful to you. So, because Bing and Exchange are built on completely different cloud infrastructures, we have to come up with a new cloud infrastructure model where we use this. In some ways, Bing is the control plane and Exchange is the data plane. But
Interesting.
developers are presented with a graph and API stack through which they can use the combined value and build experiences. For example, if you order something on Amazon using your Outlook.com account, you may see a calendar invite automatically added based on the delivery time. Or
Right.
if you have a flight ticket, there is a automatic addition happens to your calendar based on your flight booking time. Both of these use cases are samples of what enabled these, like for example, Amazon or the
Ah,
using Office Graph, and that's what I did a huge portion of time. So that transition is telling you that you have really meaningful data in one place and really
right.
smart is on the other side. There is no trusted interface for developers to build something on top, right? So that's what I have done as my last job at Microsoft before I took my role in Amazon Web Services.
Okay. Awesome. And what led you to build Oleria? Because I really want to understand being in these large enterprises,
Yeah,
working with massive teams on massive scale problems, and
yeah,
then starting a company. And you like, this is not the first company.
yeah.
Uh, so like, what was that journey like or experience like?
Yeah. So one very interesting thing about my career is I have not done the same thing for more than 2 or 3 years, right? So I can't really correlate or link between these experiences or journey, to be completely honest with you, right? My first 3, 5 years at Microsoft is completely working in operating system and delivering end users to Windows 10 with complete compatibility, and then Office, and then Elasticache, and then Salesforce. My true experience about identity actually came at Salesforce. I have not
Hmm.
really identity problem firsthand before that. So it happened coincidentally too. I went and uh, the job I have interviewed for versus the job I have done are very different. When I joined when I joined Salesforce, I'm pretty sure a lot of you can relate to it. Um, but sometimes it's the destiny, right? Like it happened to be in such a way. My experience with identity is mostly about how Salesforce have grown in my years there. When
Hmm.
I joined Salesforce, it was maybe 7,000 people company. By the time I left Salesforce, a probably 80,000 employee company. And between these two times, we may have seen more than 40 acquisitions in the process, right? And I'm responsible for identity and access management. and figuring out how all of this will come together, how we keep secure, audit, and everything. And we have to scale, and we have to
Right.
deliver services and technology for customers. So the first unlock for me, and this is the power of Salesforce's business and attitude towards their business, no matter what, every acquisition brings more business to Salesforce. I think it's one of the unique things I have seen of any other company that was able to be successful about it, which means the intention is very clear. Anything you do inside Salesforce have to be business enabler. You can't have an attitude of slowing down somebody
Right.
to get things right. So the ask is very simple. This will be moving even more faster than you anticipate, but you somehow have to figure out a technology answer to these problems. Right. So the learning there is the real diverse technology stack and situations we have seen in Salesforce, while continuing to improve the fundamentals of Salesforce security. Right. So, for example, the first task we have taken up is creating a multi-master directory service for Salesforce so that I can actually know what is going on in infrastructure, how can I control access to infrastructure, and how I can control access to data. This is only infrastructure layer, and Salesforce also had more than 70 colo and completely owned first-party data centers. Right. So in addition to this, we want to move the entire stack of Salesforce, including its acquisitions, to AWS.
Right. That
We are,
happened. I remember.
we are trying to do all of these in one shot. Right. So in my 4 to 5 years there, we built around 37 to 40 services ground up. Because for the problems we have, there isn't a vendor or a product I can buy. But for example, there is not really an on-prem service that can do one-shot functionality for a Windows .NET and a SQL-based application versus a Linux on-prem Java Oracle database-based application and a completely ephemeral-based instance like some other acquisition we have done, or something like Quip, which has its own way of doing things. So it's very hard to really say I will buy a technology from outside and fit into these needs. And because of acquisitions, we actually have more data centers coming in play. We have GCP in play. We have Azure, and we have multiple operating systems in play too. And the non-human identity part is the most interesting one. I don't know the numbers now, but back in the day, we used to have a conversation about how exactly we should scale a Salesforce org for its customers. What does it mean scaling? Is it the number of API calls? Is it the number of clicks and number of logins somebody is trying to do? Or is the size of the database that is growing? Is it the object model that is changing? You need to have some primary fundamental thing to understand to scale. One of the things I learned was the non-interactive sessions in Salesforce is much, much more larger than the interactive sessions with Salesforce. Right? The actual power of Salesforce is you come in and make a decision, but once you make the decision, Salesforce automation takes over and does it for you.
Right.
Right? The power is not to click every step of the way and drag you down. Right? Its entire capability is be mobile first, cloud first technology, where you're making a decision very easily, and then Salesforce automates things for you with deep integrations with several other systems, which essentially means the non-human interactive sessions are much larger, high scale, data is moving even faster, it requires even more reliability, right? So whenever we think about security and identity in Salesforce, it has to be both enterprise, infrastructure, platform, customer. We never broke it like that because it is very hard to break it like that.
Right.
The approach have always been be as much holistic as possible, be a business enabler while you continue to fix security in the organization. That was the challenge. But me, with the close to 300 people team, can build a lot of these services. But what about the rest of the non-Salesforce companies, which are not similar to Salesforce from the amount of investment they can do?
Right.
They are in the same bucket of how many acquisitions that are going on. They're in the same bucket of the complexities that is coming in play. But the parallel to that is COVID and what happened in the change there, right? So we used to have network layer based security, endpoint layer security, but both of those are not guaranteed anymore. Everything is internet facing, and identity is your real perimeter, sometimes is what people call, but identity is the way people are attacking you. And the trend is very clear. 4 out of the 5 incidents from then to now have always been identity-based
Identity
attacks,
based. Right.
right? So that's telling us very clearly the problem is complex. You need a real solution, and the incidents are growing. So when you put them together, it's very clear that we need to find a solution for this
One.
problem in the market.
Yeah. Awesome. And then, like, Salesforce being very cloud native, like I said, and mobile native. And then we're now in the agentic AI era. And like that by itself, like even the automations that you mentioned, where you make a decision and then let Salesforce take over previously, and now with like so many workflows across every enterprise being automated,
Yeah.
or like being autonomous, not even automated, but being autonomous
Yeah.
with agents. Like, what do you see as the biggest risk or some of the biggest risks enterprises and businesses are underestimating when it comes to agentic AI?
Yeah. So if you remember back in the day, whenever a security attack is considered, there are two critical attacks people are super worried about. One is remote code execution or doing something really bad. The second is we call it network traversal, which means it exposes a lot more data as people traverse to the systems. I think AI is opening up the SaaS traversal that is possible in a way that is not possible before. Right? You can traverse between systems and do certain things between these applications and platforms is very different at a very different scale altogether, right? For me, it has to start from the fundamentals, right? If I am deploying an agentic AI solution today, whether it is with agents or MCPs or some other fashion, I don't know how many CIOs really know what is their responsibility in security.
It's true.
Like I deploy Claude today. Imagine I integrate Google Workspace MCP or M365 MCP to it for whatever my end users use cases. So what is my security responsibility now? I don't think the industry have been very clear about that yet, right? We have defined a very good shared security model for AWS and GCP and Azure. Right? The simplest way they say is anything in the cloud is the provider's responsibility and anything on the cloud is customer's responsibility. But that definition doesn't work in AI anymore,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
The parties involved in AI is not two, right?
Yeah.
In cloud, parties involved are two. One is providing, the other is using. But in AI, I think it's more than two-party problem. So the fundamentals of understanding what are you responsible for is where it will start with. Now, by merely saying that people really don't know the answer to that question is telling me that the platform allows you to have a setup in any combination. So once you say an AI can be set up, configured, and implemented in any number of combinations, then you opened a can of worms, right? Like that's the real story now, right? Now what happens is people are coming up with different styles of guardrails. Some people are coming from a guardrail of a basic identity and authentication protocol level. For example, the first version of connectors built may not have an OAuth flow. It's a simple password, but which means if somebody leaves the organization, that connection
They
may
still
come.
have the. Yeah.
So then we transition to OAuth, right? Now we are saying basic authentication is not good enough. There should be some understanding of authorization. But that's where things get really complex as a use case, right? That's the second kind of guardrails are things like Enkrypt is trying to do, right? Like, are you building it in the right way first before even you deliver it to customers, right? Even when you deliver it to the customers, is the way the context is being provided back to the end users, is it the right way to secure or not, right? So, and I met others where people are taking the piece of code or the model and vibe coding is so default these days. But this startup is able to take the vibe code and make it secure. So there are others who are purely monitoring and able to catch based on the behavior and what is happening. Going back to the question, what I will say is the industry is still evolving. The customers who are deploying are still trying to understand what is their responsibility for security. And then the AI companies and agent companies or any other form of AI is trying to give as much flexibility as possible, which is their job in some way. But the combination of this is making it even more difficult to operate in a secure fashion.
Like there's a huge gap between what the bleeding edge AI providers, agent providers are doing versus how enterprises are adopting it. And what that gap means is inevitably there's a
Mhm.
lot of collateral damage because you see a shiny object, you suddenly want to acquire it, you suddenly want everyone in your team to start using AI or deploying AI or building AI, and suddenly you have breaches, suddenly you have fines coming in from different places, and that slows down innovation. And
Yeah.
suddenly, like you're in this feedback loop where you don't know where you land. From your perspective, like where do you see the risks, challenges, as well as innovation clashing together, and ultimately where do you think it'll lead?
Yeah. So if we break down what you have explained, right, we're making a natural assumption that customers know all the AI tools that are being used in their organization. They don't, right? If you take a
Right.
typical enterprise, they really don't know all the AI tools that are being used in the organization, right? So we used to worry about shadow IT, and that's
Mm.
continued to be a worry. But the impact of shadow AI is probably multiple times more riskier to an organization than a shadow IT, right? Again, it is contextual to what tools you use and what you do with them.
Right.
Uh, the second is the risk of not knowing exactly what is happening with these systems is unbelievably high, right? Like
Exactly.
we have enough incidents is what we keep going back to. But I would say you are lucky if you know there is an incident happened in your organization.
Mm.
The chances of somebody knowing there was actually something bad happened in their organization, I have very low confidence in when people say I really know that I know about it, right? The third is even if you know, how do you measure the impact of it? What is lost? What is the risk? How to protect? We are not even close to like how to perform an impact analysis of a breach with AI, right? Of course, we go back to the fundamentals. Somehow, somewhere, the data is the part that is being lost.
Right.
Somehow, somewhere, somebody's permissions is what allowed it to do, and somehow, somewhere, somebody's identity is what the compromised and made it happen. So we can
Right.
go back and backtrack from existing systems and logs and data, no doubts about it. But is it really purpose built for AI is the question because what you don't have is time. And third is like who's going to help me with the best practices here? Like I think AI brought us back to this era of having software that is built or more like purpose built for very small use cases, right? Like people bought a lot of big platforms for the last 10 years, but AI is changing that quite a bit. Most of the AI companies you buy today are super purpose built. Sometimes they solve one use case. So, which means you may end up buying a lot more AI tools compared to the amount of software you may have purchased in the past, right? Like there may be an
That's
AI
true.
tool
Because
that
you want task specific agents and AI rather than
exactly,
general purpose AI.
exactly. They are purpose built, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have an AI agent for SDR, I have an AI agent for AE, but within SDR, I have an AI agent that writes beautiful email and automatically sends to somebody, or an AI agent that can call somebody and have a meaningful conversation and then send an email. So these are not one, they are very purpose built use cases and outcomes people are trying to achieve. But mostly what I hear is people say, I'm hiring a CMO. I don't know how they can hire a CMO or something like that with AI. But more importantly, there is a very high chance that they can hire a recruiter today, for
Right.
sure, right? They can hire an SDR probably today,
Right. Right.
hire somebody who has some specific task in hand. So now, if the busy business enabler's expectation is to have a diverse set of AI tools in my organization, you cannot have a security strategy that will say, wait, don't try or don't use or don't move with it. Simply not an answer. So the answer
Right.
to security has to be somehow a business enabler answer, not a slowing down answer. Which means
100%.
which means the only option that's left for you is to be in runtime protection, in my opinion, right? Like while you
Right.
monitor everything going on, This is like how Zscaler and Palo Alto have completely re-architected VPN. The intention is not to say what is good versus bad network. The intention is you use your product. We'll protect you from bad internet traffic. It's as simple
Right.
as that. So
Right.
similarly, you should be free to use any AI tool you want. Have a fundamental technology within the platform that protects you for any of the bad acting.
Right.
But move fast. I think the bad guys are using it even
I mean, because they're unhinged. I mean, for all good reasons or bad reasons. And how do you see? I mean, there's tooling that you mentioned today, right? That on the AI tooling side. But one of the things that keeps coming up is AI agents,
Mhm.
specifically acting as like your colleagues, for example, where they're doing a lot more tasks at scale than humans would. I mean, apart from all the societal and economic impacts that'll have, I mean, these agents, these are not like you're not just having conversations with them,
Yeah.
right? These agents are acting on your behalf
Yeah.
or on their own behalf, and we're seeing where multi-agentic systems where collaborations among agents is coming in. So how
Yeah.
do you see this autonomy
Mhm.
affecting security and like your identity systems, your resource invocations, like who's even logging, like the table stakes of things that we used to think about are deterministic are now like agent can spin up a resource and spin it back down before any of the system has even ability to see what that agent did.
Yeah.
So how is that coming up in your conversation, in your product, or in your experience in the enterprise?
See, what you explained in the AI side is real on non-AI situation too. Remember, the automation is not new, right? It's just that the proliferation of automation with autonomous nature is scaring the hell out of people in some
Mm,
way, right? Uh, but from an identity security standpoint, we are observing this to be in a very bad state in many of the customers' environments, even today. We have deployed Oleria to multiple prospects and customers. We are we find like 25 to 30% more accounts than they thought they have in their company. We find of the all entitled permissions and access an account has, maybe 15%, not even 15, maybe 5 to 10% is actually being used. When I say actually being used for the last 6 months. But the remaining entitlements are impersonated by the AI agent. So that's the other effect of it, right? And of the accounts themselves, we find around 18 to 20% of these accounts being dormant for more than 6 months, right? So what we say the current state of these enterprises with AI is the number of customers who can answer very simple questions like who can access what in your company, how they got it, are they using it or not, is quite weak today. And the first month of Oleria deployment, that is what we help them to go and clean and have hygiene. And the next thing customers are doing with us already is, for example, a customer is using Oleria to determine if M365 Copilot should be enabled for a given employee or not.
but
For a
Microsoft is saying it's turned on by default for everyone.
Exactly. There you go, right? Just the speed at which they're going is this is what I mean by the business wants it. Every effort is being made to make it easy to turn on. There
Mm,
is a value in it for sure, and all of that. But somebody has to take responsibility of guardrail, right? And it's either Microsoft and what it is offering has to give some guardrails to customers. For example, in our case, what customers would like to know is, does this end user have access to any highly confidential documents in my company?
mm.
If they have access to any highly confidential documents, they would prefer not to give M365 access. It is not because they are pushing back on the value and the productivity of it. It is just that once the answer is provided out of a high confidential document, there's no way to put the genie back, right? So the context is already out. And now, should I mark the response in AI as data classified highly confidential? But we don't have any tagging model in conversations today. For
Right.
example, today, if you can let me mark a conversation saying highly confidential, PHI, enterprise only, then I can do and protect the conversation too. Maybe I
Mm.
can consider every conversation in AI as a resource
Right.
and write something about it and protect about it, right? So the where we are heading towards, when we present our vision to our audience, we always believed in something called autonomous identity security, which essentially means a right user having access to the right resource for the right period of time. Now, that dream requires a lot of context and data and an ability to perform a lot of things at runtime,
Right.
right? So, where we are today and where we are educating our customers and prospects about is you should start with unbelievable visibility into everything going on in your organization, whether it is centrally managed access through HR systems and IDPs, or decentrally managed access that is given locally in GitHub or AWS, or fine-grained access control, which is at a table level or a file level from all of these systems. When you have a system that can continuously map all these access model into a single place, understands the usage, translates every permission and role into functional entitlements, then you are empowered very differently. And that is the state Oleria is already today, right? So
Mm.
we are at a stage where we are helping customers with hygiene, governance, and incident response. But our future holds to go in a runtime ODSI guardrail or runtime ODSI by itself.
And is that where you see identity agents, data, as you mentioned, because like, it's a lot of it like is about data. Like,
Yeah.
is that where you see these three aspects and other enterprise systems like coming together, forming sort of a convergence where through which every enterprise uh, adopts, builds new agents, builds new workflows, and honestly builds a new agentic workforce
Yeah.
that enables it to do the work that
Yeah.
they think it would?
So, in the context of identity, I think there will be 3 to 4 big changes. One, most of the identity protection today is not completely runtime. While vendors have built a lot of technology, most of the implementation today is not at runtime.
Mm.
Right? When did you really give a username password for google.com or Gmail for yourself? Right? The token is always available,
Yeah.
always live.
Yeah.
There are other protections. I'm not disagreeing about it. But the point is, we have to transition towards more and more runtime protection. Right? The second is the way we think about identity today, whether it is because of vendors or historic reasons, we still use terms like workforce identity, customer identity, consumer identity, machine identity, service principle. Like there are like we break identity into several things. If you want to really solve identity problem for AI, you'll be lost if you still separate them like that, right? Like in one flow, you may be floating between these 5 identities in one shot, right? Like
Right.
it's
Right.
fast. And third is um, how you can like ODZ, like until now, ODZ was not taken into priority even at runtime. But now we need to clearly understand the access lineage and authorization really well. There's a lot more innovation to be done on how two systems can handshake on ODZ,
Right.
right? And have a clear understanding. Like if this was never been touched and used in the past, just because of an AI agent, if somebody is touching something new, am I supposed to do something about it or no? Right? You really don't know. And the last is um, it is very clear that because we can't predict all the combinations, you have to somehow figure out a way to quickly respond. Right? So if you're trying to use data platforms and whatnot to create identities, I don't think it's going to fly. I believe a security company in the future is only one of the two. It is either AI for security or security for AI.
Right.
Right. So, and most of the security companies will do some of both. In
Mm.
right. So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I have a million questions that I can continue to ask, honestly. Like one of the things that I'll probably, like, as a final question, um, in security, we think about people, process, product, or technology, right?
mm,
And what we're seeing is agents are like blurring the lines across all three. Like you're building agents that are acting as resources, you're building agents that are running those processes autonomously, and agents themselves are the product.
Mhm.
to defend your organization, right?
Mhm.
So, as a parting thought, like, what would you say, like, the impact of your earlier comment, like, impact of AI on security and security on AI?
Yeah, yeah. See, I would suggest and I hope industry will look into some sort of attestation. Keeping security aside, I think there is an amount of responsibility that we all have to bear, right? Even today, when somebody create a video or an image or some other asset like a document, not knowing which system created it, who did it, right? There's a lot of misinformation. It's already
Mm,
creating a lot of conflict. The world is at a very different place today. I hope we learn something from the past and do something around attestation.
yes.
If we don't know the owners of who did what, of who created something, like as a humanity, we'll be in a very different problem altogether, right? It's not directly related to security per se, but where is the foundation of trust in AI if we don't
Mm,
have on who's doing what, right?
mm,
So um, I hope the fundamentals of trust and integrity continues to stay there, because if we don't go there, AI's involvement into real enterprise-based use cases, you'll get even more slower in that. The more slower you get into that, the unit's economy change. Right? We are all believing in a large TAM that
mm,
AI is going to create. We're all
mm.
hoping for a huge number of new roles and jobs AI is planning to create. But all of those require trust and security,
Right.
right? I just want to make sure the industry understands building AI with trust and security is the only way for increasing the TAM.
Exactly. Exactly. 100%.
As long as we remember that, hopefully we all work together and create some attestation in who's creating what. I think we'll be okay.
Mm. Awesome. With that, great conversation. Thank you so much, Jagdish. And over to you, Lavanya.
Yeah, kind of bouncing off that. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your perspective on responsible AI. I think a line that you said with security for AI or AI for security really resonated with me. And I think the conversations that are ongoing right now as well. So definitely some food for thought for the listeners today. And then all of that, I hope today's conversation gave everyone some practical insight into how trust, compliance, and innovation can all work together hand in hand. And with that, if you want to learn more about Jagdish's work, be sure to check out Oleria Security. And if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. And thank you.